Hey guys, it's Mandi with Global Hemp Association. I wanted to say thank you so much for joining. I'm excited about the opportunity to build a relationship and connect this supply chain. I mean, after all, that's why we started the association. Our association was built on the foundation of connecting supply chain, building relationships, and helping you grow your business. Anyone from farmers, manufacturers, and distributors, people that are passionate about the supply chain, and those creating products selling into biofuels, plastics, textiles, construction, and building materials.
Thank you very much for joining. We're going to start seeing a lot of people pop on. When you do come on, say hello. Let us know that you're here. Like, comment, share, invite as many people as you'd like to listen in. This is going to be a great discussion. And I'm really, really excited about having Morgan and Tillery, and then hopefully Hunter will log on. I'm excited to hear from her, and how I know that she's super busy and has got a lot of things going on. So welcome. For those of you that are new or haven't joined before, we host these every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and we're now broadcasting on LinkedIn. Woohoo! I'm really excited. It opens up a whole new industry or a whole new group for us, so that's exciting. But while we get started, Morgan, I don't know you or Tillery who would like to go first. I'm excited to introduce who you are, what you've been working on, how'd you get into this industry? So I'd like from both of you just an intro as to what have you been up to?
Morgan, go for it.
All right. So my name is Morgan Elliot. I'm the COO of a company called IND Hemp, and we are located in north central Montana, and we're an industrial hemp company working on grain and fiber specifically. So my dad and I started this company a couple of years ago, and I have a background in chemical engineering. I used to work for ADM, and so I come from agriculture and processing and manufacturing. And so when my dad approached me of like, hey, there's this really great opportunity in hemp, and he'd been in it in the space for several years from a research perspective and from a farming perspective, the only thing I could really say is, well, I can help build you a facility. And so that's what we did. And so we started with an oilseed plant. We commissioned it the beginning of 2020, and we contracted about 10,000 acres in 2020. And we are in construction of our fiber decortication line as well to complement our oilseeds line. And so that'll be a 5 ton an hour line, and had to construct a brand new building. And so it's been a long process, but we're really excited to be firing up motors in the next couple weeks, and definitely excited to share with everyone the launch of that endeavor. So I am fairly new to hemp in the term of the grand scheme of things, just being in it for a few years, but like most of us, we find ourselves quickly being quote unquote experts in the field because there's not a lot of us, right? And we all are pretty limited in our experience. And so I've really focused our side, and my focus has been a lot on animal nutrition and opportunities for the feed endeavor. From a big ag perspective, if we want hemp to be considered a row crop and a commodity, we really need the opportunity to sell our products into the feed industry. And so I've worked heavily with the Hemp Feed Coalition to put forth applications through APCO and other federal ways to get approval for this product, because as crazy as it sounds, feed is actually more regulated than food in a lot of respects. And so there's quite a few hurdles ahead of us that we want to share with you guys today of what we can do to help with that, and really what's the importance of that to our industry. Feeding a cow may not seem like a big deal, but it's a big deal.
That's my food. I need them to be healthy. And now the more that I know about hemp, the more that it's just like, why aren't we? If we're feeding it to ourselves, why wouldn't we feed it to our animals?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. The way I put that is, you can eat hemp, but you can't eat a cow that's eating hemp.
Makes a lot of sense. My dad's go-to quote is, it's good for your grandparents, your grandchildren, your sickly neighbor, but somehow it's not good for your hog. And that's when people really start to question. So,
right. So I'll follow up on Mandi. I'm trying to see if we're hearing from Hunter yet. So Tillery Sims, and I'm up close to the Panhandle of Texas, kind of at the bottom of the Panhandle. Lubbock is where I'm based out of now. Grew up south of here on a cotton farm. So fourth generation in this area, farming peanuts and cotton. My husband and I farmed for several years, and then eventually we got out of farming, went into the oil and gas business. So by trade, I do management for mineral owners, but also some surface owners as well because of our ag background. So that was a project that I had taken on, a family that had old family land in the county where I'm from, and they wanted to grow hemp. They were doing that on the West Coast. So I took on the project to do the agronomic research and was intrigued. This is a very, very conservative area and never even heard of hemp. I didn't even know what it was in 2019 when I started the project. And then when I started doing the agronomic research, I was intrigued, but it was when I started doing the market research that's when I really became interested, because I began to see that it was possible that we could have another rotational crop option for our area. And in particular, I was interested in the possibilities of the low water usage. That was those claims that were being made, that half the water of cotton and that kind of stuff. So just wanted to kind of experiment with that. Then I got together with a group of farmers that I knew from across the state that had great reputations, and we did a little more thinking, and we went to Colorado, visited Dion Oates' farm, and that's when, and speaking of Dion, there he is right there. And that's really when, I had seen Dion's presentation, but my farming friends, they had not seen that. And so it was walking through Dion's field that the possibility really became clear to them as well. And so we organized in 2019 and created a 501c6, which is a trade commodity. So if you're familiar with ag, then you know that all of our commodities have trade associations. Some of them are connected with what we call checkoff programs, which are marketing and research programs that are paid for by the farmers under the direction of AMS. So, this is something that's normal for us to create these associations. One of the things that we've done here on the High Plains is we've brought in peanuts and then, built out that industry along with creating the associations. And we've done the same thing with wine and a couple of other commodities as well. So we don't normally see an association, pick up this quickly, but because of the fraud in the industry, we felt like it was going to be important to have a place for farmers to go to get some unbiased, information and education, and for us to have a collective way to do research and due diligence and that kind of thing. So we've continued on since that time. We partnered in 2020 with Delta Ag Partners, and we had a successful year. We grew 800 acres up here within about 50 miles of Slayton, which is close to Lubbock. We put in processing there. Delta Ag has been our premier partner for that. And we now will be bringing in deholing into Texas in partnership with Dion here shortly, within probably the next few months. And when that gets in, we will have processing for the entire hemp plant within 100 miles of me, from fiber, grain, extraction, and then the grain to hit the food market. So, we've made a lot of progress with some great partners. And then I've recently gone on staff for Delta Ag as public relations. So I'm moving from the executive director role to a board position with the Texas Hemp Growers Association. So we're excited. We're frustrated that the grain market has got a low ceiling on it because of this hemp feed approval that we need to get from FDA CVM. And I think that's just where we really need to focus our efforts today, is discussing that. I hate that we're missing Hunter, because she is the executive director for the Hemp Feed Coalition. And the Hemp Feed Coalition was created out of a group of stakeholders out of a legislation that, Morgan, maybe you can explain that a little bit better, but the state of Colorado did some investigating and said, let's see if it's worth pursuing approval. And after those stakeholders did that initial research, they said absolutely. And then the stakeholders created the Hemp Feed Coalition, and that was several universities across the United States, as well as Colorado, CSU. And we couldn't be more happy to have somebody like Hunter at the wheel of this. There is no one in the United States that understands where we are in every state with policy, with federal policy. Not only that, the nutritional aspects of this, where we are, with what we need to present to FDA CVM, where we are on all of the trade, all of our research projects. Hunter is brilliant. She is brilliant, and she is a huge asset to this industry. So, Morgan, do you want to kind of follow up? You've been on the steering committee there, and you guys are, your dad is a board president there. Would you kind of just follow up a little bit with kind of what the work that's been done over the last 4 years, going into the 5th year, right, of Hemp Feed Coalition?
Yeah, so appreciate that turnover. But I'll take a step back for maybe some of your viewers that don't quite understand like the feed regulatory pathways. I know it was new to me and still learning a lot. And so like I kind of mentioned before, feed is regulated more heavily than food. And this group called AFCO that we refer to is a body of people. A lot of members are made up from the state's Department of Agriculture because they're actually the regulating body on feed. And so there's someone in your state Department of Agriculture who is responsible for the ingredients that are approved in your state for feed. And right now, hemp as an ingredient really hasn't had the history to be accepted as an ingredient. So we have to go through this process for a federal approval to submit an application to AFCO. And these applications are very specific. They're not just, we just can't say hemp and we want it for like all livestock, right? We have to say this portion of the hemp seed. So our first application was hemp seed meal, which is the byproduct when you cold press, extract the oil out of the seed. And so that cake product, that meal, is high in protein, high in fiber. There's a little residual fat, but from a nutritional standpoint, it's a really great superior protein product. The amino acid profile that builds up that protein is very unique and robust. The residual fat that's left over has a super awesome fatty acid profile. We talk a lot about the omega-3 and omega-6 ratio that's just optimum. And so all the great things that we see from a human nutrition perspective also apply to the feed perspective. And so these applications take each one of those constituents, and then they have to submit for each species. So you just can't say, cows, you have to say dairy cows. And then you just can't say chickens, you have to say laying hens or broilers. And so it's very specific. Our company championed the first application. And so we were, we paid for the submission, which unfortunately every submission is probably around $250,000 when you add in the research that's required to complement that application. And then the consulting work that takes to do a review. So you have toxicologists and veterinarians and nutritionists who review your application and are looking for homogeneity across the ingredient. So basically saying what I grow here in Montana and what I process at my facility is the same, more or less, than what Tillery grows in Texas and what she processes at her facility. So they want to make sure you can support and justify that homogeneity. And so we had to collect samples across the country. We had about 46, I think is what our total number of data points, because the United States won't look at other countries for data, which is really hard and restrictive just because we have only a couple of years under our belt for data collection. And so the Hemp Feed Coalition created this group that we could reach out and we could, from a non-competitive way, right? We're just all together trying to be collaborative, collect these data points, create the application, and then submit it to AFCO for approval. So once AFCO reviews it, they have send it over to FDA CVM, the Center of Veterinary Medicine. They also do a review. They give their recommendations back to AFCO, and then AFCO kind of approves or disapproves. And then the states usually take their guidance from AFCO of how they regulate ingredients. And so that's just a very long process. Tillery mentioned Hemp Feed Coalition's been going on, I think, for 4 or 5 years. Really, the last 3 years, I think, is when we really started getting some traction. But even in that 3-year period, we unfortunately only have one application that we can say we've successfully submitted, and now we're waiting for the response from FDA CVM. And so it's a little discouraging that FDA CVM has delayed as much as they have. We like to apply pressure whenever we can. And so on a flip side of that coin, our company, IND Hemp, we actually went through a state approval process because we were like, we really can't wait for this. And so there is an opportunity for animals that are not being introduced into the human food supply chain, because that's really what FDA CVM is concerned about, right? They are concerned about the safety and efficacy of the ingredient to the animal, but they're really concerned that is something going to happen to that cow that when I eat the meat, like something's going to happen, right? It's the age-old, am I going to get high from eating a cow that's eating hemp, right? That's kind of that rumor, I guess, that got started. That really is unfortunately still in a lot of our regulators' mind. And so we have to prove that this is an ingredient, just like soybean meal, just like flaxseed meal. This is a nutritious protein product that we can incorporate in their feed, and the animals can utilize this nutrition just like these other commodities. And we really need to stop thinking of hemp as this totally different foreign concept that like is bringing in these organic matters that have never been on the planet before. Like this is all new. None of this is new stuff. It's just unfortunate that lack of education and misconceptions have really played a part in regulators' minds. So anyways, Montana has been able to pass some legislation. We worked with our state legislators, and we called out hemp for approval in pets, especially pets and horses, because those are markets that we're not eating our horses, we're not eating our dogs and cats, right. We're not eating our reptiles. Right. So we need a market that we can start creating some value in. And so that passed earlier this year with Governor Gianforte. We're super excited. It passed unanimously, both through House and city committees. So I think that just shows you that when people understand that this is just a commodity, it's a plant that we have on our planet and hopefully can start utilizing, and they start getting educated on like what we're really asking here, it's not complicated. Like this is a feed ingredient. I can eat it, you can eat it, you can buy it online from Canada or elsewhere. And as a consumer and as a business owner, we should be able to tap into that market and create the opportunities so that hemp can be around to stay. We all need money to just keep the wheels on, and that's a market opportunity that states can allow the approval for and should be advocating to do something at a state level, while the feds unfortunately are dragging their feet a little bit.
Yeah, and that, kind of really, we saw here in Texas what Montana's doing, and all kudos to Montana. When you're talking about the row crop side of things, they are leading the way. Absolutely. They're with their checkoff program and then this legislation, they really have done a phenomenal job, and they have a lot of really great support. And we really tried to mimic some of that and we added a couple of amendments to our hemp, what we called the cleanup bill here in Texas in our last session. And unfortunately, it got caught in the crosshairs of a battle with D8. So we're conservative here in Texas, like I mentioned, and when we passed this industrial hemp legislation to come through, our conservative legislature never intended for that to be an opening for anything that they believe to be an intoxicant or legalization of marijuana. And that is how they see that D8 issue, whether, people agree or not, that's how it is seen. And so that ban on D8 was put into that cleanup bill. And unfortunately, we had a couple of hemp groups that lobbied hard to kill that bill. And at the last minute, actually, that language was removed from that bill, but, the other side just would never respond. And so, for us, is the same idea. Let's free up what's here right now, this available grain. And let's free that up by feeding it to exotic game ranches. And we have 1 million horses in Texas, 1 million horses. Let's feed it there. That frees that up. And so our ranchers that are struggling right now without feed. I mean, in California, I heard a rancher on a podcast this last week. He's calling half of his herd. His neighbors have gotten rid of all of their herd. And he said, you don't understand. We do not have feed. And we have readily available feed right now for them that could step in. How about we move, some of our feed into that market where it's not going to go to human consumption. That frees up that approved feed to move into the markets, where it is going to go to human consumption, it just makes a lot of sense. And really what this speaks to, the whole event that happened there in Texas speaks to the issue that we have across the industry, which is that you have, this small percentage of a plant that can go to cannabinoids. And then you have this huge bulk of this plant that can go into these other, millions or hundreds of thousands of products. Everybody's like 25,000, 50,000, however many products. But the voice for this row crop option for all of these other products is so muted by the noise around cannabinoids that what happened in Texas is a great example of what happens to us every time we try to go in and speak to educate to legislators about the possibilities of hemp as a row crop option. Cannabinoids come into the conversation and we have to say, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a completely different commodity. We're not talking about that. So we really need folks that have that same enthusiasm around hemp to really reach out and support this effort so that the entire plant can be, advocated for, and not just this small part of the plant, so that we don't have this situation again where we have, groups that are advocating for the plant, but yet they're killing, the possibility of growing this across, thousands of acres. So
I want to get to this question really quick. I think, Morgan, I don't know if you have any feedback on this question. Is there any data around nutrition variance from one methodology to another, microbes, SOMs, and inputs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I reviewed a lot of the data points for our first submission, so I can speak to it, I think, pretty intelligently. We're held to food standards. Feed is regulated from a federal perspective, is regulated just to the same standards. So we still have to test for pathogens, microbial activity, pesticides, things like that. And so when we were collecting data and running assays to identify the homogeneity and what the ingredient looked like, we absolutely were looking at different concentrations of cannabinoids, of heavy metals, pesticides, any of these contaminants. And what I really push back on FDA CBM is if they're so afraid of cannabinoids, which, by the way, we don't see cannabinoids in hemp seed meal or really any products that are derived from the seed, because cannabinoids are not found in the seed, right? We all know that they're found on the trichomes that are on the flower and the biomass. And so if there is any residual cannabinoids, it's from dirty seed. And so part of the process in identifying that application was calling out the methods that we use to clean the seed, we process the seed, and then ultimately what the processor and then end consumer will look at for safety on the label. So we're not just calling out fiber and protein and fat, right? You are calling out those concentrations, just like we regulate mercury or lead or any of these other heavy metals that show up in commodities, right? Selenium is something we test for in wheat up here because we have high selenium rates in soils here in Canada. And so we're not afraid of those things, right? FDA is not throwing a hissy fit about mercury that may be in your wheat, but we all know that it could be there. And just because it could be there doesn't mean we have to act afraid about these things. We just need to create a threshold. We need to regulate it. We need to test for it and then find out really where that playing ground is. And so we've continued to push back that that's what really needs to be identified. There's several universities that are working on that. K-State is one of the leading universities. They're doing a lot of testing on those methodologies and protocols to look for cannabinoids in tissue samples. They're one of the only laboratories that do that. And so that's fantastic for our group to partner with them, because if FDA is so nervous about the bioaccumulation of this organic compound in the meat, milk, and eggs, or the byproducts of these animals, then let's let the science drive the conversation, not our fear of what could be there. And so, a lot of labs across the country and across the world right now are really working on better methodologies for detecting lower levels of cannabis or cannabinoids. And that is, unfortunately, it's just, we're so young of an industry, and that technology has a long ways to go. So from a regulatory perspective, we just need to be really careful about what sort of thresholds and what sort of standards or specifications we're calling out, because we all know there's a lot more that we are going to learn. but is it like every year we add, a half dozen cannabinoids to the profile because we keep finding these minor cannabinoids? So we just have, the science has a long way to catch up, and we don't want to limit our industry. We don't want to limit the process and manufacturing or the consuming of these products. But, FDA, CBM, and other, regulators need to allow for some of this sale, and they should try to regulate to a standard so that we don't have bad actors throwing product on the shelves that who the heck knows what's in there. Let's create a standard of, hey, this is how you should manufacture. These are good manufacturing practices. This is what you should be testing for, what pesticide levels you should be looking for. This is what your microbes and your pathogens should look for. And if you're a good processor, your customer already demands those things. Your customer is asking for certificates of analysis. They're already putting those requirements on you. And so we already play in that pool. We just need the feds to kind of catch up and play with us.
Well, and I think really what you're speaking to there, Morgan, is the fact that when you're talking about especially the grain side, it's a plug and play, really, industry. I mean, it's the part of the plant that just fits right in. All of that infrastructure is already in place for grain, and it's not like that this grain or the meal that's going to be going to animals isn't already going. It's going to be coming through these processors that are processing other grains for animals. So it's really, I think there can be some assurance on the public safety side that these folks that are going to be processing this at any, large capacity, they're doing this at large capacity for other grains. They don't want to present a public, health risk. They have, concerns for those things, and I think that is, a misconception a lot of times that people do have about ag, or what we say big ag, is, that there's not that concern. And I think for there's bad actors in every industry, but I think for the majority of us in agriculture, we do care. We care about consumer safety. And I think that this is, for FDA and for our states to realize that whether it's allowed or not, it's being fed.
Yeah, I always like to say it's not really a good business model for me to be killing horses. So when my director of agriculture came to me and was like, well, I don't want to be the guy who approved hemp and feed, and then cows and the horses start showing up dead. I was like, you think I want to be the company that killed a bunch of horses? Right? It's not really in our best business model. We're not going to be around to see the next day.
No.
So I hate to be crass or short, but I'm like, let's be logical about these things. Like at the end of the day, things have to make economic sense. They have to be effective. And when we start talking about feed, let's talk about volumes and numbers that we can really, really make some impact. So I just want to really quickly, you scratched on the surface of there's a massive feed shortage in the country right now. And you think that's going to change overnight? We're just going into the heart of this. I've lost over 2,000 acres this year in production due to drought and grasshoppers. And we're just a blip on the radar. And like the hay shortage is nationwide. And it's just, we're just seeing the start of this, and it's going to take years for us to come out of it. And so hemp isn't going to be the solution, but it is part of a solution. And if we don't look at it, that opportunity, I mean, this is a fantastic product. It's ripe for the picking. I have farmers and ranchers calling me all the time. They're looking for an alternative, and we shouldn't turn them away. And, we really try to, talk to our regulators and our state people about that, because you have people that are losing their ranch, losing cows, and don't know what the solution is. The hay is not coming in. Alfalfa crops are just the worst we've seen in decades. And we're saying, no, you can't feed this product. So it's really frustrating for us. These people are my friends. They're my family. It's just hard for us to have a solution. And yet we're across the side of the tape that I can't give it to them.
Right.
There was a question for you, Morgan, and as I find it, I have another one, ladies. When we talk about benefits, right, compared to, can you guys speak, for a lot of those that are listening are very aware of a lot of the benefits that come with the hemp, but for those that may not know, like why hemp compared to alfalfa? Why hemp compared to soybean or corn? Where are we competing, and is it actually a sustainable competition right now? Where are we there?
Yeah, so from a nutritional perspective, it absolutely should be on the playing field. So some of the other protein products that are out there, soy is obviously one we all know well, pea protein is another one. And when you look at their amino acid profiles, there's some things that hemp does better and some things that pea or soy does better. But also, like when you look at the hemp seed as a whole ingredient, it's by far the most nutritious product as is because of our fat, our fiber, and our protein together. It's the most well-rounded nutritional product. When you compare hemp seed oil to soybean oil or other, the omega-6s that we see in soybean oil is full of inflammatory properties. So when you're feeding that to your horse and you're wondering why, they're having such a hard time bouncing back from a trail ride or they're just sluggish, that is a huge part to do with it. Flaxseed oil is another one that people use for their equine market, which is higher in omega-3s, but it doesn't have that omega-6, we call it the gamma-linolenic acid, which is fantastic for the anti-inflammatory properties. So when you look at the nutrition of the hemp seed as a whole, there really isn't anything out there that can compete with it on the same level. The high fiber content, our meal is about 30% protein, 30% fiber, 10% fat. And so it's not a feed product as it stands because most animals can't consume a 30% protein product. You need to incorporate it as an ingredient. So it's included at, 20 to 30% of an inclusion rate. But that just makes your hay, your alfalfa, whatever else you're using, that makes that go longer, right? Because now we can spread it out, we can add it to the volumes. As far as economical, hemp needs to be grown as a commodity and the prices, need to come down. We are not going to be able to compete on the size of scale with corn and soybeans. Like 90 million acres of soy was grown last year. I think hemp in the whole nation was like, in grain hemp specifically, was like 15,000 acres, right? The magnitudes of orders so different that I cannot play in their sandbox because I do not have the economies of scale. But that doesn't mean that this isn't a curve that's coming around. The price of seed comes down, the yields go up. You see opportunities like this feed where we're creating more value for these byproducts. All of these work in this equation to create, to make hemp more profitable for our growers and really let us start to compete on a commodity level. I'm not going after corn and soy in this country, right? Like they have a ginormous footprint. We're not trying to compete with them. We're just saying, hey, we want a seat at the table. It may be a little seat right now, but we want a seat at the table and we want to be considered. And our farmers absolutely have to have the diversity and the opportunity to create more a diverse opportunity that allows them to play in other crops as well. So it's not just the health of our nutrition, of our animals that deserve this. Our farmers absolutely deserve this.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. I'm so excited that Hunter is here.
Hi, Hunter. Welcome.
Hey guys.
I'm excited to have you.
About that. I was running around this morning, getting ready to get on an airplane, and then I missed Tillery's text, and I was like, wait, what? Oh, so my apologies. I'm so sorry to be late, but I'm excited to be here.
We're casual and easygoing. I did have one more question for Morgan really quick. You mentioned complications that can arise from seed cleaning practices. Do you foresee regulations coming down on seed cleaners?
I don't think so. We don't see that with any other commodities. Like we don't want the government involved in those things, right? Like the industry needs to regulate ourselves. Our customers need to regulate us, right? There needs to be standards that come from the market backwards. I don't want the government telling me how to do my process, right? And so I think that when we ask these applications, like if there's a threshold for cannabinoids and we see that the way to regulate those cannabinoids is by cleaning your seed better, then that's what the government should create a threshold for. Allow me to figure out how to do it. It shouldn't be the government's job to tell processors how to do it. The end consumer and their level of specifications and quality should drive that conversation.
So I'm going to speak 1 minute to something that just on the production side before we let Hunter take over. So what I think that folks that want to see hemp grown, need to understand is that farmers, they are going to grow what keeps the farm sustainable. And by that, I mean, they don't have to sell their farmland off. They don't lose the family farm. They're, the majority of these folks that are still farming, they are thoughtful. A lot of them have, a second income coming from off the farm in order to make things work, or they're farming like up here, they're farming thousands and thousands of acres, as a single farmer in order to make it economical. So that's the thing to remember. Like we will never be a true commodity and reach any growth of scale that would meet any high demand for this as feed if farmers don't grow it. And that won't happen if they cannot make money doing it, And so, I think that goes back to a lot for, being able to vertically integrate the farmer all the way through to the end product, or some of these ideas are ways that we can help incentivize and subsidize this crop until it gets to the place where it is paying, for itself per acre. By the cost of production has got to come down. Like Morgan mentioned, the cost of how much seeds are, that has got to be within, competing with other commodities, and so I think that the way to think of this is not, we're going to compete with other commodities. We just want to be a tool in the toolbox. We just want to be another rotation. We don't see ourselves as the golden ticket. We don't see ourselves as plant hemp and we never have to have cotton. That is not the kind of, language that we want to promote across the industries. Like we want to be a complement the way that sorghum is a complement to cotton, so there's areas where those commodity crops have a good foothold.
Uh-oh, did we lose her? I think she froze for a second. This wasn't it Thomas Jefferson who said that, the best thing we can do is add another crop to our rotation, the best thing we can do for our nation. And so with that, Hunter, these two young ladies have sang your praises and about everything that you have been working on with the Hemp Feed Coalition. I'd love an update from you, maybe a quick intro about how you got into this. And then how do people reach you, ladies? How do people get involved? What is it that we need to bridge this gap and really bring, we have hundreds of people listening and chiming in right now. So how do they get involved?
Excellent. Well, thanks for having me. And it really is an incredible effort that is hoping to really commoditize this crop. You heard a lot about that from Tillery. And I know when we talk about what it actually looks like to take this crop and make a market and then open those markets, we actually really depend on amazing drivers like IND and Morgan. And the other thing that I want to mention too is that not only does it take this huge collaborative effort, but we're all still learning at this point. We had 88 years of prohibition, and now we're coming out with this crop and in 5 years trying to take on not only agricultural commodities, but the animal feed industry. And I think for most of us, we come to hemp for a variety of reasons. For myself, it was because there was very few opportunities when we look at one single crop that has the potential that hemp does. Think about food, we think about housing, we think about the plastics market. Those are potential markets that we are just scratching the surface on. And yet the rest of the world has had this millennial long relationship with this crop. So it's fun to meet not only entrepreneurs, but scientists, investigators that are really trying to unlock the potential, not only for our farming systems, but maybe even carbon. So we're definitely going to be talking about this crop in a different way as we go forward. So that's a big reason why I got excited about hemp, was all of those different opportunities. And then the Hemp Feed Coalition has really been an incredible endeavor to identify those experts. Like I mentioned, processors, farmers, the investigators. It's really a group effort to get this work done. And I also want to throw out there the regulators too, because at the end of the day, it is a partnership. And while we don't want the government to tell us how to regulate this, we really do have a much better understanding of this plant than we think a lot of the regulators do. To Morgan's point, we've been working with it and we have that understanding. We do also need them to help bring it to these markets and legitimize it. It's incredible to still have farmers say, is this going to get my cow high? It was one of the first conversations that I ever heard when I took on this job. And I thought, oh, it's going to be 2 years and I'm never going to hear it again. Well, that's not true. We still hear it. Hold on one second. So that was a fantastic advertisement for a local farm here in Colorado. But what we need to do is also just remember that as we are building this crop, it is going to be up to us to figure out how to regulate it and how to legitimize that crop. This is why it's so important, the work that the coalition is doing, and why we have members in every state and in Canada is to help educate our farmers, our processors, and our consumers too. To Morgan's point, if they don't know what they're asking for, then they're not sure where that best quality product is going to come from or how to find it. So that's a lot of what I get excited about.
And I just add to what you asked for Mandi originally. Hemp Feed Coalition has a fantastic website, and that's really where we can engage with people. We love to just have members from all over the world and all across the board of what their expertise and interest level is, because you never know. It could be someone who, hey, I like to feed my dog hemp treats, to like, I want to make sure that I can always feed my dog hemp treats, to someone who's been working in poultry and swine for the last 3 decades, right? There's a huge breadth of experience and interest level on the Hemp Feed Coalition, which I think makes us so strong, and why we can do what we do. And so I would encourage anyone that if this piques your interest, if you're just frustrated that, holy crap, I can't feed my horses hemp, that's bullshit or whatever, excuse my language, then jump on the website, right? Talk to us about becoming a member, because even that membership fee, right, is helping us make really great strides in the right direction. And, like I talked about at the beginning of the conversation, we have a long road ahead of us. We are going down several paths. We're trying as many parallel paths as we can to create federal approval, state approval, and to just advocate and educate. But regardless of which path creates the most momentum, it's a long road ahead of us. And so we need more members, more people passionate about it. Hunter has done a fantastic job of building a really great team that reaches out to you, that lets you know what's going on. You can be up to date on what research is going out there. I mean, we could spend the next 20 minutes just talking about the different universities and what they're looking to do and what kind of results we've been seeing. I mean, that stuff gets me really excited. I get to geek out about that, so I won't bore you with it. But I think your question of how do you reach out to us, how do you get involved, and start with the website, hempfeedcoalition.org, I believe is what it is. And then just start from there. We're just
donate. Every NPO right now is hurting, and I mean, I'd love for people to donate to the Hemp Growers Association, but donate to Hemp Feed Coalition. We need the funds to move these things forward. And, I don't know if you've mentioned that we're moving into our 5th year, which is, things change for NPOs along that time. And so we really need the support with the Hemp Feed Coalition to really continue to move things forward. So I just encourage you, get on there, make a donation, support our efforts to get Hunter, to keep Hunter's job and to get all the staff that we need and everything. So.
Excellent. And the other thing too, to add to that is not only are there ways for you to get involved as a member, but there's so many different opportunities to share your knowledge, to learn as well through that membership too, not just the financial support, but if we are going to say that we represent an industry, that we want to be industry regulated, we need to have those folks at the table and participating.
Yes, absolutely. Collaboration is key. And I say all the time, with collaboration comes communication, and we're able to really sort a lot of this out, right? What are some of the initiatives then that you see coming next, or big opportunities as the industry is progressing? Hunter, especially with the Hemp Feed Coalition, as we're talking about the feed and the grain.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and Morgan mentioned that educate and advocate is really one of our primary goals, but we do have a secondary mission, which is to open up new markets. When we think about farm commodities, when we think about agriculture in the United States, it's not a single vertical pathway, right? It's much more of a spectrum. And so those opportunities, as I said, we're really just scratching the surface. We have been investigating for too long what these opportunities are and rushing to market, right? So we have really two sides of the industry. And where the opportunities are is to really start to be able to match what those volumes are. We are really excited about all of the potential. But when we think about what does an actual feed formulator who is a well-known formulator with, millions of bags of feed that they're producing on an annual basis, what are the volumes that they're looking for from an industry like ours? So those potentials are massive. And it's going to take some time to get our processing in line with our production. We need fantastic industry drivers like IND Hemp to help us meet and get to those milestones and benchmarks. But it's only the beginning. And when you look at what's happening in the rest of the world, they're obviously very excited about it too. There's a real need for feed. There's a real need for additional commodities. And, I mentioned briefly carbon, but that's going to be a whole new market opportunity for hemp that we're just starting to realize. But at the same time, the market is absolutely outpacing our regulatory processes. There's no question. So we as an industry really do have the job to make sure that the products that we're putting out there are consistent, that we know what the safety action limits and all of that is. And I think as an industry, we have that information. I don't think there's anybody that's listening or on this call that thinks that the government does anything with quickness. Expedition for them is 2 years. So it's really hard to be patient while we know that these market opportunities are there, and it's coming faster than we can meet those opportunities. But how exciting is that? So one of the initiatives that I would like to talk about is just the fact that we do have opportunities for industry leaders to step in and really help drive these initiatives. We support our farmers. We need our farmers. We have great processing relationships to make this happen. But at the end of the day, those folks out there that have 15 products on the shelf, right? Those guys that have labels out there, they're the ones that we need support from too. Because if they've got the product out there, then we want to be able to support them and make sure that they're included in all of our recommendations, that we're working together. But we need those champions to help fund the research. It's expensive. Of course it is. We're talking about 120 animals and 4 rations and all of the chemistry that goes into setting these standards. And if you've got those 15 products on the shelf and you feel like you have an opportunity to help make this happen, we can help join you in that effort. And it's companies like IND Hemp that really help drive those efforts. Eurofin Scientific is our research and science and chemistry partner. We can't do this work without that collaboration and support. So like Morgan said, reach out to us on the website. Tillery is a great representative to talk about what does row cropping and commodity farming look like when you add hemp to your rotation. There's fantastic resources for you out there if you want to get involved or if you want to actually help really drive this initiative forward. And then, of course, hang out with us while we wait ever so patiently for the government and regulatory officials and agencies to catch up with us.
And I'm going to just issue a challenge. So Delta Ag is going to make a $5,000 donation to the Hemp Feed Coalition. And I just challenge everybody in this that's listening in, you guys match that. Y'all match that $5,000. Let's see if we can't get $10,000, to the Hemp Feed Coalition in the next few days. Let's see if we can make that happen for them.
Good on you, Tillery.
Let's put our money where our mouth is.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yes, that's a call out to all of our GHA listeners. So anybody that's listening, please, let's support this. And I think that this goes both ways. Hunter, you said something that's really important, or something that I've really focused on, is opening up new markets, right? It's really drawing awareness to these new opportunities. And it does. We have to collaborate and do it together. And that comes both with the financial and the involvement, right? Getting involved.
So here's a little teaser and something, Tillery can speak to as well as, what if we had a product that, we could reduce the amount of weight loss on cattle and transportation? What if we had a product that could improve lactation of dairy cows? What if we had a product that bulls had higher sperm count? Like, these are all things that are in research that we are seeing anecdotal and definitive data to support. So when we talk about opening new products, we're not just like tooting our horn that like, hey, you want to use hemp, right? But these are things that really could actually help. And we talk about hemp changing the world, and we've all drinking the Kool-Aid. So, that is what it is. But just think of that market opportunity of when you're looking at from a livestock perspective, conservative ranchers that are, have been doing the same thing year in, year out. They're desperate for another opportunity. They just are trying to make ends meet. If we could add, 50 to 100 pounds per cow, that's a big freaking deal. So these are markets that are there, and they are just around the corner. And we're getting the research and really defining these product opportunities to get across the finish line. So.
Absolutely. Well, however I can support you, I would love to continue to collaborate. I'm excited about this conversation. We will continue to host a reoccurring meeting exactly like this to talk about feed and the grain and help support the Hemp Feed Coalition. So any of you ladies are welcome to invite anybody, but I also put this out to get back onto our website, register for the next meeting. It will be a Zoom call face-to-face. And then I open this up also. I would love to have each of you on for a one-on-one interview where we can really highlight what each of you are working on, what you get into, your passions, and make this a reoccurring opportunity for people to know where they can go on another resource. And so I invite you to join there. And then also this Thursday, we have a new emerging technology. This Thursday is talking all about the blockchain and how it's involved in the track and trace, the traceability, the carbon tracking, and the carbon credits. And then on Friday, Zoe and a number of her colleagues from North Carolina State are joining to talk about the textile industry. And so I'm excited about that. So back to kind of what you said, Hunter, opening up new emerging markets and bringing in all different people is really where I'm passionate and connecting people. And so I invite, again, everybody to get involved with Global Hemp Association and any of our meetings or opportunities. And then please support both IND Hemp, the Texas Hemp Growers Association, the Hemp Feed Coalition, and Delta Ag. So we've got a lot of representation here that I'm really proud of.
When you look for us, you have to look for the tractor logo.
Okay.
If you don't see the tractor, it's not us. Texas Hemp Growers Association.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else, ladies, you guys would like to add? We're right at about an hour, and I know how busy you ladies are. So anything you'd like to add real quick before we close up?
No, thanks for having us on here. It's great to just be able to share with people. And as you can tell, we're all pretty passionate about this. And so feel free to reach out to any of us. We're always open to chat with people. So.
Yep. Always open. Hit us up on LinkedIn. And I'm glad that Hunter got to drop by and everyone got to see how smart she is and what a great leader she's been in this project. So.
I mean, I am surrounded by greatness. There's no question that every day I'm in this position because there's people who have taken risks and are passionate as I am, that want to not only volunteer the time, but will put their money where their mouth is and not only believe in something, but want to do it the right way.
Absolutely. Well, there are a lot of comments that have come in through our LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. You guys are welcome to get back on there and comment or look at who has chimed in. And then anybody else, don't hesitate to reach out. If you guys have questions or need help connecting with Morgan, Hunter, or Tillery, feel free to reach out to me at globalhempassociation.org, and I can help facilitate some of that. And then Hunter and Morgan, I'm excited to come up and visit you here soon, and I hope Tillery and Hunter, you'll be there. But if I can help support you guys individually, please don't hesitate to let me know.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.